In fact, it's the world's only natural alcoholic drink. Of course, that's why it's so good for you.
Well, this part of the Menai Straits, from the Britannia Bridge here to the Menai Bridge, about a mile away, just around the corner, is one of the most dangerous stretches of waterway anywhere in the country. It's known as the Swellies, and twice a day, 58 billion gallons of water surges through. With swirling currents and fast-flowing tides, it needs great skill at the tiller to negotiate a safe passage through.
It's classed as unnavigable. If you're bringing anything more than 12 passengers through it and you haven't got an exemption certificate, you have to have a pilot on board from Carnarvon to actually steer the ship through, because otherwise it would just be too dangerous.
And why is that? Why is it so hazardous?
Because the tides here, we have a tidal range difference of 2 hours from that side of the island to that side of the island, so you get this massive forces of water just pouring through. And this particular stretch here is almost made entirely of rock and bedrock.
I can see loads and loads of whirlpools.
It's the effect of the water just rushing through, and as that water hits the stone slabs, it's forcing water up and causing these back eddies and turbulence on the surface.
And you do a lot of diving around here, don't you?
It's a unique place, the Menai Straits. It's mainly soft corals and sponges. There's a lot of invertebrates.
And we've really got caught in this whirlpool now.
Yeah, we're getting spun round here as we come up over the bank. She'll just gently spin through here.
And what's the most famous of all the shipwrecks here, do you reckon?
The most famous is definitely the HMS Conway, and she was being brought through here by 2 tugs, and she got caught in one of these whirlpools, ended up on the platters, which we're just drifting over to now. And when the tide went out, she broke her back, and that was it. She was finished. It was a huge ship.
Close to the Britannia Bridge across the Straits is the little island of Goragoch, which many years ago was inhabited by monks. Now the only cottage on the island is a holiday home, and the other building was a fish smokery until 50 years ago. The fish were caught in traps, and one of them has been restored. So how does it work, Scott?
Well, as the tide comes in, the fish go over the top of a grating system, which is just across the back there. And then these sluices, which are open at the moment, would be closed, and then the water would just dissipate through the rocks, until eventually you ended up with a pool of fish just lying on the sand.
Easy pickings, really, then.
Very much so.
And many other fish traps around here, then?
This is actually built on top of a very old fish trap, dating back to around the 1600s. And all along the shore side, on that side, there are more fish traps. And there's another one on the other side of the island which would have been working in the day when the monastery was in use.
The Britannia Bridge was built by Robert Stevenson to take the railway across to Anglesey and its port of Holyhead. It opened in 1850, but it looks rather different today. The bridge caught fire in 1970 and it burnt for days, the intense heat contorting the girders. After long and extensive repairs, the bridge was reopened to rail traffic, and then, in 1980, a much-needed dual carriageway road was built on top. Before the Britannia Bridge, this was the only bridge across to Anglesey, Thomas Telford's Menai Bridge, which was completed in 1826, and at the time, it was the longest suspension bridge in the world. The piers, made from rough-hewn Anglesey stone, had to be 100 feet above high water, so tall-masted sailing ships could pass underneath. Thick steel chains suspend the road above the swirling currents. Well, what difference did the bridge make to this part of Anglesey?
Well, it completely created the town of Menai Bridge. There was nothing here before except a rocky common. The common was enclosed, the bridge was built, and then the town took off.
Before the bridge, I mean, it was an important agricultural area, this, wasn't it?
Yes.
How did they get the animals across?
Yes, well, that is a huge story. Imagine the black Anglesey cattle swimming across. In fact, by the 18th century, it was calculated that 10,000 cattle swam across the Menai Straits in 1 year. And it is this stretch of water here. It must have been an incredible sight. The noise must have been awful.
the famous bridge brought the A5 road into Anglesey, didn't
Yes,
it?
it was all part of the huge plan to link London with Holyhead and then, of course, the boats to Ireland. It was connecting London and Dublin.
Today, the little town of Menai Bridge continues to thrive, and we'll have much more from this dramatic waterway during the rest of today's CountryFile.
Reportage of farm vets in the UK. Here in the Menai Straits, you'll find some of the cleanest, clearest water in Britain. It's no wonder then that the sea's natural resources are being harnessed to extract this, salt. If you pour table salt into your hand, it looks like grains of sand, but this looks like beautiful crystals.
Years ago, all salt pretty much looked like this. Salt was made round the coastal areas of Britain to preserve and flavour food. But now, with mass production, we've forgotten what it should really look and taste like. David Lee Wilson produces 50 tonnes of sea salt a year from these waters.
This seawater has got a balance of natural trace elements in it. Calcium, magnesium, zinc, iodine, lots of things. But the ones that are special and that influence taste are calcium makes it taste chalky and magnesium makes it taste more bitter. And we can get a balance of those by the handmade way we make the salt. And that really works well. And it makes the salt taste of all the good things about the sea, that sort of special smell you have by the seaside. And that is what we're trying to capture and put in a salt container.
And this is the water from which you extract your salt?
That's right. This is the clean raw material. This is what's coming in, and we choose when we use that, and I like to know how much salt there actually is in the seawater, and so if I come down here every day and check it, and all I do
How's it looking?
that's telling me that the seawater's just under 4% salt in that seawater, and when the seawater is particularly salty, we'll pump it ashore and then we turn it into salt.
And what makes these waters particularly good for making salt?
There's several things that make these different. One is there's no industry around us. We've got the added benefits which are really special to where we are, that under this seawater there's a huge mussel bank. There's about 4,000 tonnes of mussels, and they're filtering all that water naturally. And then just beyond that is where our pipeline, there's a white buoy out there. Our pipeline is under the sand there. So we're getting sand filter and a natural mussel filter. So our salt is incredibly white, incredibly pure, and that's really done by nature.
And that pumped water arrives back here at the plant, where it's filtered again, before being boiled under a vacuum in bell jars and reduced to a concentrated brine. It's then transferred into heated tanks, where the salt forms into crystals overnight.
John, you're going to talk us through the next stage of the process, but couldn't you have found me more attractive headgear?
So, you have to be very gentle, try and get underneath the crystals, yeah?
Why is it important to be very careful?
Well, at this stage of the salt's life, it's very, very soft. And if you was to break it up at this stage, it'd be very fine salt.
So it's important to keep the pieces as big as possible.
That's correct. We're trying to achieve the like flaky crystals, and the perfect shape is actually like a pyramid shape. Something like this type thing.
Oh, yes.
You can see the pyramid shape forming.
The salt is rinsed to remove the excess chalkiness and dried in the oven to harden it off. It's then ready for packing. After the whole process is completed, the only waste product, clean, fresh water, is pumped back into the sea, and the cycle begins again.
This summer has been the
There Macedonia, and here on Anglesey, well, over there is the pretty little town of Beaumaris. The waters round here are crystal clear, yet they are clouded with controversy over a plan which, according to your point of view, would bring many much-needed jobs to the area or would be a major threat to an important local industry, mussel fishing. More than half the mussels harvested in Britain come from these waters. It's a modern, multi-million-pound business involving 4 companies and employing around 20 people.
It's a farming operation. Everyone says we're fishermen, but we fish the small mussels, but then it's farming. It's a 3-year process. We have to go and find the baby seed mussels, and they're about 1 centimetre long. And we find those in the summer, either in Carnarvon, on the bar there where they settle out, or sometimes in Morecambe Bay. And we then bring them back here to the Menai Strait where they're sheltered and safe.
So you put them in nurseries here, really?
Yes, and they're there for at least a year while they grow, and then we might move them again. But basically, we're probably selling them after 3 years.
And now you're sort of scooping up the fully grown mussels.
Yes, we're using these simple dredges. They just side the mussels off the bottom and deliver them onto the deck here, where they're washed and then bagged, ready for export.
The trouble is, a mussel nursery is on the site of a proposed marina. The go-ahead's been given at every level for the 400-berth project, which backers say would create 140 jobs. But is a marina really needed here?
There's over 2,000 boats on waiting lists for marinas around the North Wales coast. We've got 570 here alone. So in theory, we're oversubscribed before we've put a stone in the water. So yes, there is a very strong demand for marina berths.
We need employment in this area. This marina will employ about 100, 140, 150 people. That will make a vast difference to the people of Beaumaris. And I always argue, the youngsters of the area, and by the way, 50% of all school children in the area in Anglesey have to go abroad, have to go outside Anglesey to find work.
And what do you think the impact will be if the marina is built?
There are several sorts of impact. There's the direct loss of the ground. There's the consequential losses to the surrounding ground in terms of the current speed's going to be altered. There may be pollution from the boats using the marina because there's no legal requirement to fit black water tanks. So we could see a downgrading of the bacteriological status of the Menai Strait, which would mean our mussels become unsaleable.
That's very unlikely. We've already prepared a very stringent set of rules that will apply to all berth holders in form of an environmental code of practice, which will prohibit the flushing of black water over the side of the boats. And one of the things the marina will bring is the only facility in the Menai Straits where sewage holding tanks can be pumped out. So in a way, the marina will actually provide the means to make the Straits cleaner than it already is. It'll only take a very small proportion of the mussel fishery. It's about 2% of the area that's worked. There's plenty of space in the rest of the several order for the mussel fishermen to continue fishing. It shouldn't have any effect on them.
Although the entire area of the fishery order is quite substantial, only a small portion of that is usable ground. And all that ground is being fully used at the moment. There's nowhere else to really put our mussels for their nursery stages.
So what's going to happen if the marina gets the go-ahead, as seems likely?
We'll be placed under financial jeopardy. Our future existence will be questionable, I'd say, if the marina gets the go-ahead.
We're not against the marina in the Menai Strait, it's just the situation. We've put forward 2 other places where they could have it, in Beaumaris Bay itself or in Friars Bay, and both have been poo-pooed. They don't want them. The people in Beaumaris don't want to see a marina on their doorstep. They're quite happy for us to be inconvenienced.
Planners say that both the other sites were considered but rejected as unsuitable. Permission for the marina was granted in 1999, and since then the mussel fishermen have used every available legal process to fight their case. They're making another challenge at the moment, so no work has begun.
If this marina could have been built 5 years ago, instead of costing 15 million to build, it might have been about 12 million to build. Now then also the revenue that would have come from the marina being here, and we think it's well over £8 million a year, could be up to £10 million a year. Multiply that by the 5 years that we've lost, that's nearly £50 million or £50 million. Come on, we can't allow it to go on any longer. People want to work, people want to be employed, they want to earn money.
Do you think the musselsmen are being unreasonable?
Yes, I do. I think we could work together, and I think, quite honestly, they're causing long-term problems for themselves. They should say, now, we've been through the courts or wherever, and we now should say, let's get on together and make a good job of it, because there's room for everybody.
The council's seeking to try to generate new employment, but that shouldn't come with the price of destroying a sustainable industry like ours.
The shops in the town, they all want this marina. The hotels, the pubs, they all want the marina, and the people want the marina.
And there should be a final decision before too long. The fishermen of Hastings still do things in the old-fashioned way. And talking about tradition, there's been an annual fair here in what's now the small town of Menai Bridge since long before the bridge was opened. In fact, it started in 1691. There you go, welcome. Well, thank you very much. Well, great fun. But in the old days, people didn't go home with a stuffed farm animal. They'd hope to go back with a real horse or a pony. And I'm not going to meet a man who's old enough to remember those days.
80 years ago, it was the main source of the farmers' interest in it, was bringing their Shire horses, the mares and their foals, to be sold in the auction here. And several mountain ponies were sold hand to hand outside the sale gate, not under the auctioneer's hammer.
So it was mainly sort of agriculture in those days, was it? The fair?
It was yes.
When did it start to become a fun fair?
Well, when the tractors came about, the War Agricultural Committee and their tractors came, so farmers were selling off their horses and changing over to tractors. In my case, I insisted on my father that I'd rather have the tractor than the horse, which didn't go down at all well with him. I used to come down with my late father, of course. He was keen on coming down with a mare and her foal, selling the foal annually.
And how many horses and foals and ponies would there be at the fair, do you reckon?
There'd be about 400 in all for the 2-day sale. The mares and the younger animals the first day, and then the 3-year-old and upwards on the second day.
Well, these days, I mean, it's a fair for everybody, isn't it? I suppose there are very few farmers and farm workers come here anymore.
No more,
What do you think about the changing
Well,
time?
it's a shame, really, for me. I used to meet several of my friends, young boys as myself, who were very, very keen on the farming and came as good farmers.
Times have certainly changed, but the fair in Menai Bridge stays as popular as ever.
Well, today of Menai Straits, the channel which separates Anglesey from North Wales. I'm on my way to visit a small uninhabited island known in Welsh as Anglesey, which is at the north end of the Straits.
The name Cyril refers to Saint Cyril, who established a monastic settlement on Anglesey in the 6th century. He also set up a community here on the island, just half a mile across the sea from the priory.
Anglesey is known in English as Puffin Island because for much of the year it's home to hundreds of puffins, but unfortunately they're at sea at the moment. They leave the island from September to March. Richard, you're a tour guide here. The puffins are a big draw, aren't they?
Absolutely. All the wildlife on Puffin Island is quite an asset to our area.
You can see Beaumaris from here. Wasn't the castle built to defend the Straits?
Yes, it was built by Edward I. He built a castle at Carnarvon to secure the south end of the Straits, and then he built the castle at Beaumaris, which defends the north end. And it was built to keep the Welsh down.
We've got the Snowdonia mountain range down to one side. What else can you see on this journey down the Straits?
The old fort at Llaeniog, then we have the quarry at Penman, and then we have the lighthouse. That was built as a result of the wreck of the Rothery Castle. It's been there now since 1860.
Need the agility of a mountain goat to scale this island. It's pretty impenetrable, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. There's a reason for that, because until recently there used to be goats in the last century and rabbits until 1955 on the island. The goats were taken off, the rabbits got myxomatosis, and so the vegetation has spread quite profusely over the island, making access very difficult now, as you've seen.
I would have loved to have seen the monastery, but it's impenetrable. We just can't get to it.
Yes, the elder that's on the island was originally just small clumps round the monastery. I think it covered about 8% of the island in 1948 and is now up to 2/3 of the island is covered by elder. So you'd have a terrible job of trying to beach your way through the elder to get to the monastery.
Were the monks hermits?
Yes, more or less. They'd set up 2 colonies here, one at 2 monastic settlements, one at Halen Mon, which is just on the mainland nearby, and the one here on Puffin Island. And they settled here, we think, because they wanted a hard life which brought them nearer to God.
So the island has had lots of names, but it is most commonly known as Puffin Island. The Puffins will be back here in March, won't they?
Yes, they come in to breed, they used to breed in burrows on the tops of the cliffs, but because the vegetation has grown so long, they now breed in the crevices. But most of the rest of the year, of course, they're out at sea. Most of the puffins from here are probably going down into the Bay of Biscay and out into the open ocean there. So they're quite used to feeding in quite severe conditions.
So the puffins could spend their whole life at sea?
Yes. They only come in because they've got to find somewhere to lay their eggs and have somewhere for the young until they can swim.
It must be quite a sight when they return.
Yes, you see them sitting on the water underneath the nesting areas, flying in and out. Very colourful birds with this big multicoloured beak, which, by the way, they lose in winter. They have horny bills on either side of the beak, and those bits drop off, so they look completely different when you see them in winter time.
We'll have to come back in March, won't we?
Yeah.
Although it's just a short boat trip from the mainland, the sheer cliffs and tough terrain of the island makes it feel quite isolated. A perfect place for hermit monks and puffins.
And that's all we've got time for from the Menai Straits, but if you'd like more information about anything on the programme, you can find it on CFAX page 616 or on the CountryFile website.
And that's where you'll also find out how to buy our lovely CountryFile calendar. Next week we'll be heading out to Big Tree Country, that's Perthshire.
And I'll be following in the footsteps of perhaps the world's most famous playwright as I walk along the Shakespeare Way.
That's at 11 o'clock on BBC One.
Hope you can join us then. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
And also next week on